President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney.
העימות השני בין המועמדים לנשיאות ארצות הברית נדמה לקרב אגרוף. הנשיא המכהן אובמה הגיע הפעם מוכן ותקיף יותר מול היריב שניצח בעימות הראשון מיט רומני.
The most important thing we can do is to make sure we control our own energy. So here's what I've done since I've been president. We have increased oil production to the highest levels in 16 years. Natural gas production is the highest it's been in decades.
In the last 4 years, you cut permits and licenses on federal land and federal waters in half.
Not true, Governor Romney.
So how much did you cut them by?
Not true.
By how much did you cut them by then?
Governor, we have actually produced more oil.
No. How much did you cut licenses and permits on federal land and federal waters?
Governor Romney, here's what we did. There were a whole bunch of oil companies.
No, I had a question, and the question was, how much did you cut them by?
You want me to answer a question?
How much did you cut them by?
I'm happy to answer the question.
במרכז העימות עמד נושא המדיניות הכלכלית של הנשיא המכהן מול הצעותיו של המועמד רומני.
The cost of lowering rates for everybody across the board, 20%, along with what he also wants to do in terms of eliminating the estate tax, along what he wants to do in terms of corporate changes in the tax code, it costs about $5 trillion. Governor Romney then also wants to spend $2 trillion on additional military programs, even though the military is not asking for them. That's $7 trillion. He also wants to continue the Bush tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. That's another $1 trillion. That's $8 trillion.
We have 4 consecutive years where he said when he was running for office he would cut the deficit in half. Instead, he's doubled it. We've gone from $10 trillion of national debt to $16 trillion of national debt. If the president were reelected, we go to almost $20 trillion of national debt. This puts us on a road to Greece. I know what it takes to balance budgets. I've done it my entire life. So, for instance, when he says, yours is the $5 trillion cut, well, no, it's not, because I'm offsetting some of the reductions with holding down some of the deductions.
And Governor, I need to have you both hang up. I understand the stakes here. I understand both of you, but I will get run out of...
אובמה בתגובה שלב קלף מנצח לטובתו.
We've gone through a tough 4 years. There's no doubt about it. But 4 years ago, I told the American people, and I told you, I would cut taxes for middle-class families. And I did. I told you I'd cut taxes for small businesses, and I have. I said that I'd end the war in Iraq, and I did. I said we'd refocus attention on those who actually attacked us on 9/11. And we have gone after Al-Qaeda's leadership like never before, and Osama bin Laden is dead.
רומני ניסה לתקוף את אובמה בנושא הפנסיה.
Mr. President, have you looked at your pension? Have you looked at your pension?
I've got to say.
Mr. President, have you looked at your pension?
You know, I don't look at my pension. It's not as big as yours, so it doesn't take as long.
Let me give you some advice.
I don't check it that often.
המזרח התיכון סוף סוף נכנס לתמונה בזכות רומני שתקף את אובמה על התנהלותו בעניין.
Look what's happening in Syria, in Egypt, now in Libya. Consider the distance between ourselves and Israel. The president said that he was going to put daylight between us and Israel. We have Iran 4 years closer to a nuclear bomb. Syria is not just the tragedy of 30,000 civilians being killed by a military, but also a strategically significant player for America. The president's policies throughout the Middle East began with an apology tour and pursue a strategy of leading from behind, and this strategy is unraveling before our very eyes.
אובמה אומנם לא הגיב לאמירות רומני בעניין ישראל, אבל ניצת ויכוח סוער בין השניים סביב הפיגוע בבנגזי, שאירע בחודש שעבר, במהלכו נרצח שגריר ארצות הברית בלוב.
The day after the attack, Governor, I stood in the Rose Garden and I told the American people in the world that we were going to find out exactly what happened, that this was an act of terror, and I also said that we're going to hunt down those who committed this crime. And the suggestion that anybody in my team, whether Secretary of State, our UN ambassador, anybody on my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive. That's not what we do.
רומני ניסה להתעמת עם אובמה על כך שלקחו לו שבועיים להבין שמדובר היה בפיגוע טרור, והוכח על טעותו בעזרתה של המנחה.
I think it's interesting the president just said something which is that on the day after the attack he went to the Rose Garden and said that this was an act of terror.
That's what I said.
You said in the Rose Garden, the day after the attack, it was an act of terror. It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
I want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
He did call it an act of terror.
אם בזכות המנחה או לא, אובמה לפי סקר CNN הוכרז כמנצח של העימות הנוכחי.